America is the greatest marketing machine that has ever been on this planet. And at the end of the day, marketing, it's convincing others that your product is what you say it is. It's as great as you say it is. It's everything. McDonald's is delicious. Starbucks is the best coffee in the world. When it's just not. And knowing that marketing works for industry, and then you get down to Black folks. We are the industry that built this country, like literally the labor. And then when that labor was forced to stop, there was this huge marketing scheme that went around that said that we were lazy, criminals, over-sexual. So I assure you, any place on this planet that you will find McDonald's, Coca-Cola, or Starbucks, you will find American racism.
Stay tuned, stay curious. Enculturation Podcast. Brooklyn Terry, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you coming all this way and hanging out with me on the show. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've been a fan of your work for many, many years now. I've watched all your videos, particularly the one where you're performing on stage with Elite Force, I think, to Daft Punk Tectonic.
Oh,
yeah, that
wow.
one was like awesome. That was one of my favorite clips. So yeah. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. Damn, that was a long time ago. That was 20 years ago.
Yeah. So I'm not new to your work for sure.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So let's start with your origins and your background. You know, like how did you get to become such a pillar of the culture?
I still don't know that answer. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. Parents also born and raised in Brooklyn. Dance-wise, it's like my sister would take me to park jams when I was a kid, when I was really young, like 5, 6, 7, 8-ish, in Bed-Stuy at 44 Park. And the DJ, I just found out as an adult, found out who the DJ was. The DJ was a DJ by the name of Grandmaster Flowers. Yeah, and that was my beginnings in this music/dance culture. And of course, culturally, dance is what we do. When there's music on, we dance. So it wasn't something that I actively thought about doing. It was just a part of my life. Then I started going out and to kind of organize places like roller skating rinks and stuff like that. I really, really, really began to dance when I was in junior high school, and I discovered that girls like guys that dance. That definitely kind of set the fire under me. Then I would go to the roller skating rink and I would skate because my older sister's also a skater. My dad was a skater. And I'd take the skates off and go into the middle of the rink and dance at Empire Skating Rink. From the rink, I started going to clubs and meeting all the friends I have today in the clubs. When I first got there, I thought I was the ish. And then I found out quickly that I was just ish. And I had to reassess and get better.
Yeah, it's so interesting how dance can change someone's perception of you. I've been at parties where there's some very obvious hardcore gangsters, right? Mm. And then when my friends was doing a set on the dance floor, and he did a good job, and these super thugged out dudes came up and said, "Hey man, I really appreciate what you did out there." And I was like, "Whoa, these dudes just kind of saw you as a different way."
Everybody respects talent, right? It's funny how that works. Everybody, when you're really talented, it kind of shows who you really are, and it doesn't matter if it's a gangster or if it's a little old lady. The talent shines through, and people tend to have an empathy for that and show respect to it.
Yeah, as you went about your journey, did you ever have a moment where like, hey, I'm going to make this my life, or it was always a part of your life, so there was no like decision making in the process?
I never, I suppose that you say, hey, I'm going to make this part of my life. I suppose you mean I'm going to make money from it.
Yeah.
I never actively planned to make money from this. It's like something that kind of fell in my lap. But going out clubbing, someone was like, "Hey, will you do my music video?" Sure. And they would pay me. And then like some Japanese kids came to New York and asked me to teach them. And I was like, "Teach you what?" teach me what you're doing. Just do it. That was my thought. And then they're like, we'll pay you. And I was like, okay. So this kind of fell into my lap. I didn't really even think at that time there was money to be made from it. Mm-hmm. And then when I found out there was, I was like, well, this is better than having a boss.
Yeah. What were your first gigs like?
Man, I did some house artists video, and I don't even remember who the artist was.
That was one of your first gigs?
Yeah.
Wow, that's like a
video.
It's a big start.
It was a very like, I'm not even gonna say B artist, is more like a CD artist. Okay. And it was maybe $150, $200 to be, but it was a gig. And then I jumped forward really quick because besides teaching and stuff like that, my next gig was Mariah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's exactly what I said when I got home from that audition. I sat on the sofa and I said, wow. So, yeah.
So, like, how did you process getting Mariah as a gig? Because, what was going through your mind? Was it like, hey, this is bigger than you ever imagined? Or was it like, you know what, I really meant for this? No,
I didn't think I was meant for it. As a matter of fact, Ejo called me at it had to be like 6:30 or 7 o'clock in the morning. I was just getting home from a club, and he told me to come to the audition. And I didn't audition. I didn't know anything about audition. I used to go to the club and dance, and that was the entirety of what I did. He told me to come to the audition. He was like, yo, get out of bed, come to the audition. And I said, I don't audition. Get your ass out of bed. I was like, oh, all right. So I went to the audition, and Stretch, Link, Peter, Paul, everyone's there. And I have to audition in front of these guys. I'm like, oh, God. So the choreography part of the audition was a real womp womp. Like, I was terrible. But we have this kind of tradition where in our auditions, you have to freestyle. So that was my thing, and I rocked that. But to cut forward a little bit, when I got home that night, I still did not believe it was real. I was like, is this real? And not until during the week when we had to go to rehearsals, it started to hit me. Oh, this is real, and it's a job, and I'm going to get paid for this. Right? I can pay my rent this month. Yeah.
How old were you at this time?
I was maybe 20, about to be 21. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we move on with the commercial work, so tell me how you really gravitated towards footwork.
I don't even know. Don't ask me. Like, to have it's funny because people say that whatever style of dance, your style chooses you. Mm-hmm. It's not your choice. And you just have to let go and let things happen. And I think a lot of people have that problem of letting go and letting things happen. I used to do all the stuff on the floor when I was younger. I got older, my body changed, I had knee surgery, but I still love the dance. And if I love the dance, I'm going to do the dance. And yeah, it just something happened.
Were there any particular styles or people that really inspired you, or you were like, hey, I really want to learn and model after this person or something?
Well,
or it's more like taking bits and pieces.
Yeah, it's a lot of taking bits and pieces. If I'm being honest, I took little bits and pieces of Brian Green and little bits and pieces of Ejo. And then the first time I saw Shannon dance in the circle, I wanted to take little bits and pieces, but it was way too far out of my league.
Shannon, you mean Shannon?
Shannon, yeah. So, and of course and that's just in that particular world, but growing up, you have so many people dancing around you. You have like people doing the hustle and people doing all the the old school dances like the baseball bat and the wop. And those dances stick with you. And then you have the much older dances from the jazz era, and those dances are part of your lexicon as well. So you just end up doing them with this new music and this new swag that's come along. So, of course, I picked up from the more my contemporaries, the people that were there. I picked up from them. But I already had a bit of history just from growing up being black and being from New York City, it was a lot there already to feed from.
Yeah. Well, okay. So jumping back to Mariah Carey. Yeah. So you just got the gig, and you're like, "Wow, I'm gonna be paid from this."
Yeah. So we did the video. I got the paycheck, and I was like, I can pay my rent. Like, and that's really what it was. And I was super happy, not necessarily to work with Mariah, but it's more happy to work with my friends who are these dancers that I looked up to because I was the youngest. I was like the baby. And I was happy to even be included in those spaces with them. Like, me, that's how I felt. And to be honest, I feel like that to this day when I get on stage with Stretch and Link and Ejo and Loose Joint and Khalif. I still feel like, me too? Like, you want me up here with you guys? Because they are my contemporaries, but they're also my big brothers. And those are the people that I looked up to. And Shannon S. Definitely.
So getting the gig with Mariah Carey, did it change how big your dreams became? Or what were your dreams before that moment? Like, I'm sure that would have changed how you visualized life.
It definitely did. I was a little bit lost before the big gig. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm dyslexic. So I went through most of school, like, struggling. I went to college and took this test my first year of college, and they were like, "Damn, son!" Like, where they saw the results of the test, and so because of that struggle in school, I was really confused. Like, what am I gonna do? And my high school girlfriend was ultra smart. Her name is Toya Liverpool, ultra smart, and I was always kind of intimidated by her intelligence and blah 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 blah. So I was just confused and a little bit lost. But I knew I could dance. And it was like, dancing is just something you do. It is not a career goal. At least it wasn't for me. It wasn't a career goal. That wasn't even in my atmosphere as a career goal. And then I got the gig, and I was like I said, I can make money from this. And I could be with my friends all day. And this shit is fun. So it did spark, I guess, a dream, but everything was happening so fast and moving so quickly that it sparked the dream while I was living the dream. Like, the dream was like, oh, wow, this is a great career to have. Oh, shit, I have this career. Like, literally at exactly the same time. And that went on for years. So I didn't, diverge from that career from the time I got that gig until, 2000-ish. So it was quite a few years, from 95 to, I guess, 2000, something like that.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of support from either family or peers to keep on going with that direction? Or were some people like, when I get a real job, and something like that along that?
I had one cousin, and I'm not going to say his name, but you know who you are. You know who you are. One cousin. Everybody was really supportive. But this dude, he was just like, you need to give up that dancing stuff. That's not a real job. You need to get a real job. And I'm a bit of an asshole. So during the big financial crisis, like 2008-ish, when everybody was struggling, I was thriving with my not real job. And at that time, I had already moved to Japan. I was living in Japan. And I came home to visit my mom, and my cousin had come over to my mom's house, and I was about to take my mom to dinner. And I was like, hey, me and mommy going to dinner. It's like, you can come. I'll pay for you. I'll buy your dinner with the money that I make from my fake job, because he had gotten laid off. And there was no way that I was going to let that shit slide. So I had to get him. He needed to get it. And he got really mad at me, but I was like, you still coming to dinner? And he came to dinner.
Saying no to free good food is
it's hard. It's hard. But yeah, most of my family were really supportive. My mom has always been supportive. She's never tripped about me going out dancing. My dad was like, do what you do. So yeah, it was really my sister, first time ever that I ever saw her admit that she was proud of me.
So while on this journey, did you have any fears or any doubts that because it's kind of an unpaved journey, right? Yeah.
Constantly, right?
What are some of those fears and how did you overcome it?
One of those fears is, how long is this going to last? And if this doesn't last, what am I going to do? Because I was like, I don't know how to do anything else. Oh my God, I need to keep doing this. So yeah, that's a real fear, but those fears were kind of made more secure because of the crew I was in. We were so connected. We were so tight. We ran honestly together. So that added a lot of security, like against those fears. But yeah, those.
So you mean like if you were, say, on that path alone without your peers, that would be even more
really
challenging?
Difficult.
Okay.
Really, it would be super challenging without them. And actually, no, it wouldn't be super challenging. It would be almost impossible without us being together as a crew. That would, yeah. Oof.
So like, how do you guys keep each other in check to be accountable for showing up as a crew versus, because I think sometimes when people quote unquote make it, right, whether it's getting a high paid job or getting a really cool high paying gig, there's a thought of like, hey, I've made it. I don't have to try as much anymore. I can start relaxing or loosening my belt. And then certain bad habits set in. And then next thing you know, you're out of a gig or you're out of a job.
It's funny. Like, I don't know what we did to keep each other accountable. I really don't know. I think we all genuinely, as individuals, one, had a love for the dance. Two, liked the money we were making. And we never took anything for granted. I don't think there's a single member of Elite Force that ever took our position in this world for granted, and that keeps you humble, you know? Another thing that we always did is the industry is the devil. The industry is the absolute devil. And our...
By industry, do you mean the music?
The music industry it's just... Ugh. But the way we rolled together and our unity made it so that we ended up being like the highest paid dancers. Made it so that people had to respect us. If one of us in the crew was like, I'm not feeling the way they're treating us, we would all get together and we would talk about it and we would vote. And if the vote came up with the majority saying that we're leaving this gig, we would all leave the gig. Not one person would stay behind. We would leave. And that is strength, right? And that's a strength that a lot of people nowadays just don't have. And that's why throughout the 90s, we ran, like dance-wise, we ran everything. So it was that unity and that strength that gave me the security when I felt any fear at all.
Yeah, so I have to ask the devil's in the details. So what about the industry is the devil?
The details. What about the industry is the devil? They don't care about you. Not only will they will, like the industry will, people from the industry will do everything in their power to destroy what you have, even if it's just to get 1 inch ahead. Yeah. It's just, it is dog eat dog.
Do you think that's just the nature of the industry, or why is it like that?
It's the nature of the industry itself. I think the industry is like kind of designed to bring out the worst in people because there are so few positions that so many people want. And I think the people at the top kind of enjoy the blood sport. Yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. So with that said, what is a good gig? Like, what's a gig worth fighting for versus no, we're gonna skip this.
A gig that's worth fighting for as a dancer is a gig that, one, you have security, like you have some job security. And as I know, dancers don't even know what that means, job security.
Yeah. So what does it look like in dance terms? Is it
To have job security?
yeah? Like, is it a guaranteed or minimum amount of shows or performances, or like what does your job security look like for a dance?
So a lot of time dancers will be, this is like definitely for back dancing, and it's probably kind of dated because I haven't done that shit in a long time. So in my day, definitely dancers had loyalty to the artists, right? But the artists almost never had loyalty to the dancers. So job security would be an artist that has loyalty to the dancers. That would be job security. So you know when that artist goes on the road or something like that, you know you have a gig. Guarantee is a word that doesn't exist in that world because nothing is guaranteed. Shit, we used to say the job isn't yours until you're on stage. So guarantees just kind of don't exist. But you can have a little more security if you know that this artist is loyal to the dancers. And Mariah was very loyal to the dancers. Like we didn't have to worry about anything for a very long time.
You guys were with her for like what, 10 years or something?
I think I was like 95-ish until 2000, 2001, something like that. But Stretch and Link and the other guys were way longer.
That seems unheard of nowadays, right?
That's absolutely unheard of nowadays. I mean, to be honest, if you get on any tour nowadays, it's pretty rare because, you know, the music industry's changed.
Yeah, not that I'm a expert in this field, but the only dancer that I can associate with an artist right now is the Twins. But other than that, anyone else, any other music artist who has dancers, I have no idea who's dancing. So yeah, it seems non-existent nowadays to associate, hey, this is a known dancer with this group, right?
And you know, for us, it was, it's Elite Force, and they're with Mariah Carey at this particular time. But we had already had a name, like the crew had a name for itself before Mariah. And just as individual dancers, we already had names before Mariah. Like I know, even as the youngest, I had a name throughout New York City. And all the other guys were known worldwide already. So that just kind of added to everything that was going on.
Did Mariah ever made it known what she saw in you guys? Like what about?
She never said it with her mouth, but she said it with her actions. One, because we got paid really well. That is the definite sign of someone respecting your work, paying you well. And two, when we did the concerts, we would have our own slot as Elite Force. In the concert, we'd have our own time just to dance as Elite Force. And yeah, that also says, I trust these guys. I know their quality. And I think their quality is worth me putting them in my concert with their names for everyone to see.
Yeah. So on the other end, would be a red flag gig, or if you're getting non-favorable terms, how do you fight for yourself in this industry?
Man, it's hard if you don't have a squad that rolls together, a union. Like we were our own union, right? It's really, really hard because the red flags are literally everywhere. Like the initial offer is usually already a huge red flag. How much they're giving you is a huge red flag. Them asking you to do shit for free is a huge red flag. The issue with that is if you say no, there's like 40, 50, 100, 200 people standing right behind you like, I'll do it. So that if there's no unity, nothing will change. You know, I think there might be a union now starting to bubble up, starting to happen. But that was not the case when I was coming up. Our union was us, was Elite Force. We were our own union. A red flag would also be how the artists themselves communicate with you. If the artist is always communicating with you through 2-3 different parties, it's like, wait, we're standing right here. We're artists just like you. We're as talented, if not more, than you are. So just fucking talk to me. That's a huge red flag, and I feel like that's a little bit of a sign of disrespect. Care on the set or on the tour, whatever. If they don't treat you, if you don't get a fraction of what they have, like a fraction even, they, like, if you're sitting outside in the cold while they're in a tent in a warm place and you're both waiting to go on stage, you can probably assume that artist doesn't care about you.
So the theme of what I hear you saying is, one is having a we mentality of, like, thinking about the group, or maybe coming together as a group, as an organization, right? Even if you don't have other people on the gig, at least reach out and really get people to band together, and then being treated as an asset versus a disposable.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Those are huge red flags, and I hope those are red flags in any part of your life, not just working in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I come to spot red flags in my industry too. One of which is if there doesn't seem to be organization or concise communication, or like it's just all ambiguous, vague words. I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yep, because they trying to get you. They trying to get you.
I do photography too as one of my my hobbies, right? And then whenever someone offers me work for exposure, I tell them. I'm already overexposed.
Yeah, exactly. I still get like messages from people that see my Instagram, and look, I'm not the world's best, but I do have a profile. And I get people that will like, hey, I am shooting this concept video, and I wanted to know if you would like to be a part of this. It's for we're not paying, it's just for exposure. And one person that offered me this, my ego jumped out, and I was like, what do you mean exposure? I've been viral since VHS. What the fuck are you talking about exposure? Like, more people know me than you. It's hilarious to me.
Yeah. So the other part of working in the industry is what the artist wants and what you're willing to do, right? So like how do you manage what you're willing to do versus whatever the job demands?
You need to have some ethics. Right? I guess ethics come in there some, like, to help you manage what you're willing to do, as opposed to what the artists want you to do. So you have to have some ethics and some bravery to say, nah, I can't do that. Yeah, and be able to stand by your word. Stand by your ethics. It's a tough balancing act, but
yeah. Have you had any gigs that was like, this crosses my ethics and I'm not going to do it?
Yeah, I've had one of those that I've walked away from and went home. I'm like,
what about it was a red flag for you? Was it like the certain messages in the work, or?
It wasn't the messages, it was treatment. Okay. Right? It was treatment. And I always feel like if I let these people treat me like this, the folks that are going to come after me, like the folks that come, my juniors that are coming up after me, that means I'm allowing them to be treated like this as well. So I'm just like, yeah, I can't do that. I'm out, and I broke out. Still got the paycheck though. But I broke out. I was like, I'm out of here. And yeah.
Yeah. So looking back at your working industry, is there anything that you said, yeah, that was a really good decision, or any regrets you wish you'd done differently? Like any like learning lessons overall?
Wow. I don't have any regrets per se. I guess, with age, you always look back and you're like, damn, if I would have known then what I know now, I have those things.
Yeah. What are those things?
Sheesh. If I would have known then what I know now, one, I would have saved a lot more money. But you're from the hood, definitely not a rich family, and you're making all of this money, and it definitely does not come with an instruction manual. And you're just like, you're living your life and you're paying your bills and you're trying to have fun. So that's probably the main thing. I would be like, damn, I wish I would have done better managing my money. I would be in a very different position. Maybe not. Who knows? But to be honest, that's it. Because anything else that I would have changed probably would have changed my trajectory, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now. Right? So I think everything that happened and the way that it happened was supposed to happen that way. If I would have done anything else, I wouldn't be Brooklyn Terry,
Yeah. But yeah, looking back is always tough, right? Because looking back, everyone has perfect vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
It's
yeah,
always
looking back,
2020.
looking back, everyone's always a genius, right? So, obviously you're from Brooklyn and you represent Brooklyn, right?
Absolutely.
So as you went about your journey, and especially with getting big gigs like Mariah and other works like Men in Black, so did that change the dynamic of the neighborhood? Were people from Brooklyn like, hey, like someone from here made it, or did it have an effect on your?
No, not at all. This is something that I say all the time. The thing that I love the most about New York in general, not just Brooklyn, the thing I love about New York the absolute most is nobody's famous because everybody's famous. So I'm just another dude. I grew up, when I growing up in Flatbush, everybody's from Flatbush. You know what I mean? Everybody's from Flatbush. Mos Def is from Flatbush. Talib is from Flatbush. Busta's from, we have so many people that are from just that little area. And it's great that they're from there because we get to be like, oh yeah, that's just another human being with a talent doing what they do. Right? So I'm just another human being in my hood with a talent doing what I do. There's so many talented people there that who never become famous. So many absolute legends that no one knows. So yeah, I don't really shift anything in the neighborhood per se. I think it takes a lot more work to shift anything in the neighborhood, and not a lot more than being talented famous for your talent.
Yeah, that's well said. That's a good point. Let's talk about the context and time period of like when the music and dance really took shape, right? So what did you experience, or what was life back then that for these movements to have formed?
Wow. Like the way that I dance now, you mean?
Not the way, so like life as you experienced it back then, not just like for dance wise, but like obviously there was a need for the community to come together, right, through these art forms. So what was that time period like?
Well, my period was the crack era, and it was crazy. Crack era in New York was insane.
Yeah, what was that like? I'm curious because I've heard lots of things like supposedly the CIA brought crack to New York.
No, not to New York. That was to LA.
LA, okay.
That was to LA, and that was the spark that lit the flame. But if you're from the inner city and you're Black or Latino, you felt the burn of that flame. I don't think there's anyone that lived in those places that got out unscathed. Yeah, it reflected in the music. It reflected in the movement. But what's really strange is now that the situation isn't as bad, people kind of glorify it. But back then, it wasn't glorified. Like we had songs like Self-Destruction And we had groups like Public Enemy, just totally shutting it down. The phrase was crack is whack, right? Everything was to shut that idea down, not to uplift it. Now it feels like, even though it's not even half as bad as it was, everyone's trying to uplift the idea, the negative idea.
Can you explain more about uplifting the negative idea? What is that?
I saw this interview with DMC from Run DMC. And he was just like, man, I smoked weed. He's like, I did lots of cocaine. We did all that crazy shit. But you never hear us rhyme about it. And now I think it's the reverse. Everyone is kind of glorifying all this stuff that they do, which is, and there's people do their substances, and that's cool. That's what they do. But it has never been glorified in the music the way it is today. No one was out saying, like, I love crack. Like, that would have been a terrible rap song. I'm missing all my teeth because I'll be smoking that crack. Right? But now you just hear all the tunes just about doing the substances. And I think that's really freaky. So musically, we were the phrase would be, the word would be woke back then about what was going on in the community. And of course, through the music, you get that energy. And then community-wise, we had this like big thing to fight, and that has a lot of energy. And then if you watch us dance at that time, the energy reflects that, because that is the energy that was given. And that energy was needed to combat this thing that we were fighting at that time. So I think that's why the 90s and the art from the 90s, whether it be hip hop, the dance, or visual, was so powerful. House was so powerful because that energy existed, because we had this serious war to fight that was clear and present danger in our neighborhood and coming full speed directly at us. So we had to combat it with equal or stronger energy. Everything we did had equal or stronger energy.
How do you think life would be like today if there was no hip hop? Like it's
boring. It would be boring. Plain and simple, it would be boring. Hip hop filled a void that needed to be filled, and it probably needed to be filled because things were slowing down, and the youth were just like, "Yeah, I can't relate. I can't relate to the doo-wop music. I can't relate, even though I love disco, but a lot of the youth at that time were like, I can't relate to the opulence of what disco was portraying."
Because
right?
They were so poor?
Because these kids ain't have money like that. Kids in the South Bronx, kids in Harlem, kids in Brooklyn, they couldn't relate to that, to go in to Studio 54 and snorting cocaine all night. Like, because that's what happened. I hope that doesn't demonetize you. Right? But they couldn't relate to that. So it filled that void. And it's funny. God, I sound like an old man. Jeez, Christmas. It's funny how full circle that came to now. The youth of today, young rappers, are celebrating the opulence that we were like fighting, or the first generations of hip hop were fighting.
How would you say that the culture, whether it's hip hop or house, has shaped your worldview? Because I feel like that's something that not a lot of people talk about enough.
Well, directly would be just by the messages in the music, because I'm of a generation where, like I just said, the music was just different. So hearing that music, especially hip hop, even house, just made you kind of see the world different. It made you see the world for what it was around you, instead of kind of glorifying things that shouldn't be glorified. That's the direct way. And the indirect way is this hip hop stuff and this house stuff has gotten me through 10 passports. It has it's picked me up and it's traveled me around the world so many times that I can no longer count. It's put me in rooms with people that I would have never gotten to meet. And I'm not talking about like the rich people. I'm talking about the people from the other side of the planet who have a very, very different point of view than I did. And we get to sit down and we get to talk and share our point of view and begin to understand each other. So house and hip hop showed me the world. House of hip hop has given me the master's degree in humanity. And I don't think I could have got that from any other any university or anything like that. So that's how it's changed my worldview. This is going to sound messed up, but sometimes I go around the way and I have conversations with people and I feel my worldly education when I have the conversation, because some of the things that I want to say, I know they probably wouldn't be able to relate to, and their point of view is very different than mine. And that's all because, well, I got to see things. I got to change my truths, and they never got the chance to change their truths. And I can also say that I've spoken to CEOs and corporate businessmen and have those conversations with them. And I'm like, they're just narrow as fuck, because they also, as much money as they have been pretty much in one place. Or if they go and they travel, they go and they stay at the resort and they don't speak to people. So they've never gotten to change their truths. And I've gotten to change mine several times through my life.
Yeah. So now I'm curious, what are these truths that change?
Oh man, there's a lot. There's like a million. All the things that you think that are absolute, when you travel, you find that they're not.
Was it like a belief system, or was it your view of others, or how others,
Like, okay, just really quick. You as an Asian American, right? If I'd never traveled, you'd just be an Asian American to me. I would never have an experience of who you are outside of being Asian American. But because I can travel, one, to me, you're Vietnamese American, not just blanket Asian American. Two, I understand that, guys, this is real. Not every Asian person is Chinese, right? And then you go around Asia and you see the huge differences just in everyone in those places. And then you also get to see those people not as immigrants struggling to find something better, but you also get to see how great they actually have it in the place that they are as well. That changes everything, right? That changes oh my God, I feel so bad for these people. Yeah, that's not always the case. Some people in some families, they need to get out to find a better life. But there's other people that are thriving and living great, and they're not immigrants, and they're there. And that kind of truth that we have in the United States of seeing others as this poor, oh my God, that gets changed when you get to travel. And hip hop and house have put me in those places around the world. I don't think I would have done that without that, or had the chance to do it.
Yeah. Why do you think that both hip hop and house, especially hip hop, has been so taken up around the world? It's a global phenomenon at this point. And like, how do you feel knowing that, or how do you feel when you see from other countries take up these music and dances?
It's interesting. It's interesting. It's really interesting. Sometimes I feel like they're having conversations about me without me in the room.
Okay. What does that mean?
I think they're just assuming who we are.
So it's kind of like the reverse of the other experience.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's the reverse of they're having the reverse of the other experience. Which gets, let's just say, interesting sometimes. I find that we are excluded from our own culture a lot. We're totally excluded, even though we've pretty much built those ideas and shared them with the world. When it gets shared with the world, the builders often get excluded. So yeah, that's the awkward part. And then I also hear from this side, from us, some of us, how much better people over there do hip hop than we do, which is bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. We walk it, we talk it, we live it. Hip hop and house are the culmination of Black culture in the United States. And people practice around the world these small parts of it, these little tiny parts of it. But just because they practice these little tiny parts of it doesn't mean that they do it better than we do it. We do it from the time we open our eyes in the morning till the time we close our eyes at night, and repeat and repeat and repeat. So yeah, it gets weird.
Yeah, so definitely got to talk about oppression. We talk about hip hop and house and the times that it came out, even nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So, things like oppression or the isms like racism or sexism and colorism, right?
Mm.
What was your experience traveling the world in that lens? Because I think different places can be showing up in that manner in different ways.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that it's important to talk about because
it is. It's really, really important to talk about, and I am definitely always down to talk about that shit. All right, so what is America? We got to talk about what is America before we talk about the export, right? America is the greatest marketing machine that has ever been on this planet. Name one. Let's see. You're Vietnamese. Name a Vietnamese brand that's popular here. Exactly. But I am 100% sure you can go to Vietnam, go to McDonald's, get a Coke. Right?
Yeah, you know what? When I was in Mexico, next to Chichen Itza,
Yeah.
It's the pyramids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not Egypt pyramids, but it's their own form of pyramids. Yeah. There was a Starbucks outside.
Exactly.
And I was like,
what the fuck?
Mind blown.
Yeah.
Starbucks next to ancient relic.
Yep. So, and at the end of the day, marketing is only the skill of convincing others that your product is what you say it is, right? It's convincing others that your product is what you say it is. It's as great as you say it is. It's everything. McDonald's is delicious. Starbucks is the best coffee in the world. When it's just not, right? You just convincing people that it is what you say it is. So knowing that, how great the American marketing machine is, and knowing that marketing works for industry, and then you get down to Black folks. We are the industry that created this country, that built this country. We are the industry that built this country, like literally the labor that built this country. And then when that labor was forced to stop, there was this huge marketing scheme that went around that said that we were lazy. And then another marketing scheme that went around and said that we were criminals. And then other marketing scheme that went around and said that we were over-sexual. Right? And these things live to this day. So I assure you, any place on this planet that you'll find McDonald's, Coca-Cola, or Starbucks, you will find American racism, because they have branded us as that around this planet. Their marketing works so well that I've heard the word nigger in other countries that shouldn't even be a part of their lexicon. So that is a part of the experience that I've gone through, and with the isms, with racism for sure. And I'm very willing to say it is definitely America's fault, because this is who we've been branded as. And we have to fight against the branding everywhere we go. Why do I have to walk into a space and prove that I'm not a criminal? Or prove that I'm not violent? Or prove that I'm not overly sexual? Like, why do I have to walk into these spaces and prove to people that? It's pretty ridiculous.
It goes against the concept of justice in this country, where you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, but everything with us goes against all the things with justice. We were the only, the longest enslaved people on this free land. We fought to free. We fought against the British or the English for independence while we were still slaves, right? So it's all upside down for us.
Yeah, more recently, I've been interested by the idea of how racism or oppression could look around the world, right? And from country to country, because this is going to sound like a shock, but there was a person who I'll have remain anonymous, told me point blank to my face that America is the least racist country in the world. And now... Right, and
how many places has this person been?
That I'm not sure, but just the first statement without anything else attached to it was a shocker to me. So not that I'm an expert in this topic, but it made me really curious about one, what this person was able to experience or observe to make that statement.
Was this person Black?
No, but that's the last question I'll answer for that person.
I think you just answered the entire thing. That's it. That you just answered the question. They have a whole different experience. And I'm not even going to go any further into that, because if that person's not Black in America, then yeah, that statement could feel very true to them.
Does racism look different in the other countries? Meaning, you mentioned that it's American branded, but is it rebranding in other countries?
Yeah. If you walk into a Starbucks in Japan is a little bit different than Starbucks in the United States. So yeah, it's different. They do things different. In Japan they have really good customer service. But it's still Starbucks.
So with your path taking you around the world, how do you show up in these places knowing that this is what you may be walking into?
Damn. How do I show up into these places knowing that this is what I may be walking into? See, unlike a lot of other people who travel, especially us as Black artists, most of the time we're traveling because the people that we're going to want to learn our culture, right? That is, I don't think many people consider that. Most of the time where I'm going somewhere, people want to learn something directly from my culture. So I walk into those spaces Black as fuck. and totally not caring, because I know who I am. I know who I am, and I know my value. And I know that even though you may have these concepts of me, you know my value too.
Because you're, and also Elite Force, going to these places and bringing a piece of culture with you, have you seen it change those countries or your students to have a different, back to the whole, having your absolute change or challenge, right?
Yeah. I've seen our art, just as Elite Force. I've seen the way we dance liberate entire generations of dancers. I've seen the way we dance liberate entire generations of dancers, and it liberates them because we that's the reason we dance in the first place, right? That's the reason we dance on this side in the first place. So they get a little bit of that liberation, and it changes part of who they are, and it's beautiful to see that until we get excluded from it.
Yeah, what can be done to bring you guys back into the conversation? Like, and why do you think that you're excluded?
That's not a conversation that we need to have. That's a conversation that they need to have. Hip hop is never ever, hip hop, house, Black culture in general has never asked for entry. We've never asked to be invited to the party. People always ask us to please come to the party. And we're not going to start asking now to come to the party either.
Yeah, so like, why do you think that you guys are excluded from?
That's also a conversation that needs to be had on that side. I'm not here to solve their problems, and I'm not even gonna. That is a them problem, not an us problem. If they feel like they want to do that, then get ahead. At the end of the day, we're a part of the continuum over here. And for generations and generations before us, we've done what we do. And generations and generations after, we will do what we do.
Yeah, when Stretch was on here, he mentioned a few words about losing the murder mentality, or like the violence in your language or actions, especially within hip hop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts around that?
I feel like that's, of course, losing the murder mentality is in the violence in our like everyday lexicon. I think that's of course, but I also think we have to, in order to fix that problem, we have to understand why it exists. It exists because we come from pretty messed up, violent places. When violence is a part of your pretty much everyday life, it will also be a part of your lexicon. So the situations around the way we live and grow have to change first in order for the lexicon to change. And then us as people from the culture, born and raised in the culture, everyone thinks what we do is super cool. So when we talk like, yo, we murdered that shit, son. He killed that shit, son. Of course, people around the world who have no idea the world that we grew up in, they just find it cool. So they're going to say it too. So we have to start to get away from it, but we also have to look at why it exists and treat the wounds so that can heal. And then once that's healed, the lexicon will heal too.
Yeah. Do you think that part is changing, or it has remained, like what cycle is it in?
I would say things are better than they were for my mom's generation, and better than they were when I was younger, or me and Stretch were younger. But there's a lot more to go. There's a whole lot more to go before we can say we're fine, and we can just erase that out of our existence and also out of our vocabulary. So we got a while to go.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask about is the violence. I don't want to say within hip hop, but within maybe the time period that hip hop was birthed, right? So, what did going to a party, or what did that environment look like back then?
Ooh.
Whereas I know some people today, like, oh yeah, especially during a battle, they may have like very aggressive tendencies.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, this is from the culture, this is from whatever scene, right? So like, help me understand that starting point into why it may have transitioned to some people thinking that it's just normal.
It's just normal. Well, so we got to think about the people, like the age of the people who were participating in hip hop at that time, and even some now. The age of those people that were participating in hip hop, like real talk, were a bunch of teenagers. Teenagers going through puberty.
That's a good point.
When you look at it through that lens, you put any room full of teenagers, like just put them in a room, and some shit's gonna happen. It's gonna get pretty hairy at some point, right? So put the room full of teenagers that have their traumas, and just getting to that jam or to that party was already hairy. Put them in a room and put them in a competitive situation. Something's gonna happen. Like there's gonna be some fights or whatever that's gonna happen. That doesn't necessarily make the violence a part of this culture. No, that's just human beings humaning. At the end of the day. So I always thought that conversation was really weird. Oh, fighting. No, actually, hip hop actually was created to try to fucking put the flame out because it was really violent and real life violent on the streets at that time in New York City. So that hip hop was created and was started to help to put that flame out. So it's not a part of the culture. It is just a part of being human when you're 14, 15, 16, which is the age of the people that were building the foundations of hip hop. They were, so yeah, we all have that when we're that age.
Yeah. Do you have any stories of like maybe a close call or some altercations at a party back then? That's safe to share.
I have way too many. Look, I'm not going to pull one out, but I'll just say that, and I'm not glorifying the situation. If I laugh and I look happy, it's because I survived it, not because, it happened, that's great. No, it's like, I'm here sitting and talking. There's so many times that I'm going home ducking from bullets, like there's a shootout on the block, right? Ducking from bullets coming from a party, or a big fight breaks out in the club, and I just happen to be in the right place in the right time and grab my peoples, and we get out. Like there's so many times that I can't really pull one out. And the joy you see is I made it out, I didn't get shot, or I wasn't one of the people. It's just getting stomped on, and so yeah. There's a lot, a whole lot.
Yeah. So what about the battle mentality versus battle etiquette? What are your thoughts on that as far as should there be a standard, or when is going too far?
Wow. Battle mentality is kind of this warrior's creed. Like, I'm not afraid of anybody. I don't care. I'll step in the circle with anybody. Anybody can get it. I don't care if he's better than me or she's better than me. I'm in there. That's battle mentality. Battle etiquette is respect that person when they're doing their thing. You would have never found someone jumping in on top of someone's round. Like, it is always an understood, unspoken, but definitely understood thing that's happening. This person is doing their round, even if I think they're whack, if they're corny, I wait. And that's because I expect you to also wait. Another thing that's a very New York thing that I found out recently, no touching. You touch me, that's a fight. Period. And there's no way around it. If you touch me,
what do you mean by a New York thing? Like, New York believes that.
So apparently on other scenes, like the Crump scene, people touch each other, which is foreign to me. In the Chicago Footwork scene, people touch each other. Like, people grab a shirt or whatever. But in New York, yo, B, don't touch me. Like, that's a hard foul. That will definitely end up in a fight. So yeah, the etiquette, so that part of the etiquette changes from region to region, but the part that I see pretty clearly that stays the same is if someone's out there saying what they have to say, you let them say what they have to say before you get out there. So yeah, that's etiquette.
Yeah, there's a clip in mind that I want to get your thoughts on this particular topic. You're open to talking about it?
Yeah. I know where we're going. Oh, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. So I need to say this first. Greenteck is incredible. Greenteck, dance-wise, is absolutely incredible. Like every time I watch Greenteck dance, I'm like, wow. Musically, technically, his groove is just phenomenal. Creativity, but there are other parts that he falls short on. Incredible, man. Like his
angles,
everything, his ability to get to the floor and get back up is, and this is Wizard. Wizard's a whacker. And I think Wizard did really dope in this round because as a whacker, this wouldn't have been very natural for him.
This music, you mean?
Yeah, this music. And he did a great job. I was actually really, really impressed.
What do you like about Wizard so far?
So Wizard's movement is crispy. Like everything is crispy. And he also knows how to make fun of his opponent. Like super crisp. This shit.
Okay, so obviously we need to talk about that moment.
This shit, man. So I got really, really mad when I saw this, man. I was livid when I saw this.
Yeah.
That was a disrespect. That was an absolute disrespect. I mean, in any situation, that's a disrespect. If somebody walks up to you anywhere and just pours water on your head, it's a disrespect, right? Especially in a situation like this. We are street dance in Singapore, and street dancers are already seen a certain way because of the people that the dances come from, and this is around the world. We're always seen as a bit less than. In this particular event, it was open to the public. You have people from all walks of life in Singapore in the audience watching this. And then those people see that. What is that? Like, what does that say? What is that message to those folks? That's one. Two, I just don't like the disrespect and Wizard's attitude of quote unquote being a gangster when I know he's not.
Wizard, you mean Greenteck?
I mean, sorry, Wizard. Greenteck's attitude of being a gangster when I know he's not was also offensive. So I had to say something, and I literally told him, like, you know, if you would have did that back in the States, you would have got punched in the face. Because that is true. I don't know anybody here that would have allowed that to happen. I also feel like because Wizard was whacking, and whacking is a dance from the gay scene, I also feel like that was a little bit of homophobia happening. It was like, wow, this dude is really coming at me. And Wizard had a chance because Wizard was rocking. And Greenteck felt intimidated and knew nothing else to do. Instead of coming out and getting busy the next round, decides to do that.
Yeah, to my eyes, I didn't see anything that Wizard did to warrant that response from Greenteck.
Me neither. There was nothing. And that was the whole thing that pissed me off. Wizard didn't touch Greenteck, didn't disrespect Greenteck in any way possible. He was just coming at him in the battle, which is what you're supposed to do. The same way that Wizard went at them in the battle. And yeah, it was so ridiculously offensive. And I know, for real, if that would have happened to me and Greenteck would have went 5 minutes. We'd have fought. And if it would have happened to any person that's judging on that panel, imagine him doing that to anybody else you see on that panel. he got beat up. So, yeah, I was pissed.
So one thing I hear you saying is because street dancers are already viewed a certain way, so there's a certain level of maturity and responsibility that needs to be had in order to represent your culture properly.
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel. And we were just talking about the whole violence thing, right? That was a violent act. Whether there was blood drawn or he hit him, that was a violent act. Because if I walk up to you and just pour water over your head, you're going to be like, what the? And probably get really mad at me unless we're like at the beach or some shit like that. Right? So, yeah, it was a violent act. He stepped way, way, way outside of the lines. And I think it was, I felt it. I felt humiliated because of what we represent. Like, we're representing something that's great, but we know how people look at it. So I was just like, yeah, no, I can't deal with this. So yeah, I had to say something. I couldn't hold it back. And the people that know me know that I'm not very good at holding my tongue.
Would it be one of those things where, especially since so much blood and sweat and tears went into building this culture, to see someone on a platform that should be represented well do something that kind of just tosses all that out the window?
Exactly. And and it just, there's a lot of layers to it. There's a whole lot of layers to it. The blood, sweat, and tears, like the deepest layers, the blood, sweat, and tears that came with building this culture. But then I know Felix, the dude who created this event, and the blood, sweat, and tears that just go into creating this event even. Like, so there's a lot of layers to it. And he disrespected every single layer with that one action. That guy.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Greenteck, but I am curious about, do you think there's anything where, wherever he comes from or whatever culture he's a part of, that
this dude is from, he's from the suburbs in Montreal. He's not a gangster. He's not about that life. And everybody knows him, knows that he's not about that life. He's not that person. He didn't grow up like that. That is something that he bought into the story, right? He bought into it. He thinks that that's who he's supposed to be. But he's not that person, which is more offensive if you think about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, again, so I don't know him, so this is all speculation on my part. Would it be fair to say that maybe he feels like he has to do this, given that he's taken on this identity, or
you know what?
Or it's like maybe he's using this to mask whatever like response he's actually doing. Like, hey, I'm gonna use this as an excuse.
Yeah, I don't think there's many excuses for abuse. There's not many excuses for abuse. So no matter how he feels, his feelings are invalid. The time that he turned that bottle of water upside down on Wizard's head, his feelings went invalid. How he feels doesn't matter. What he went through to that point doesn't matter. It just, there has to be some place where it's just like the line of good and bad had been crossed. The line of doing something good and the line of doing something bad had been crossed. So I know a lot of people that went through a lot of shit and still can find that line, and he had crossed it.
Yeah, do you think a lot of dancers make the same choices or fall for the same, I guess, path as Greenteck does? Like, do you think a lot of dancers out there are like thinking, oh yeah, I have to be this way because this is where the culture comes from?
No, I don't. He is an anomaly, thank God, because I couldn't deal with that all the time. He's an anomaly. There's a few out there that trip, but there's not a lot. Most people understand that line, understand the line of respect and disrespect, the doing something good, doing something bad line. And a lot of the dancers, like if you look at the two dudes sitting right next to me, Nelson and Capella, they're from the hood. They're from the hood in Paris, right? And if you do something like that in those kind of places, you know that there's a risk of very serious bodily harm. Someone's coming after you. You can absolutely, you can bet all your money that someone is on their way right after that happens. Here in Singapore, in this very safe space, he chose to do what he did. So that's not a sign of strength. That's a bit cowardice. He's not going to do the same thing in the hood in Paris. He wouldn't do the same thing in Harlem, or in the Bronx, or in Brooklyn. He wouldn't do the same thing in LA.
Yeah, so the theme of what you're saying sounds to me like consequences, right? So depending on where you're from, you learn what not to do based on the consequences that you may face. So maybe because he's from the suburbs and not from that life, he hasn't really faced those consequences of doing this to somebody else. Yeah. But with that said, also knowing that this is an event and Wizard doesn't seem like a aggressive person, doing that to Wizard there's gonna be no consequences. Yeah.
I once again, I don't know how he could figure that there's no consequences. It's kind of you're not from the same places I'm from. Do you think that there's a consequence to that?
Me personally, I would never pour water on anyone's head.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not even about the consequences. It's just like, why? So but like I said, man, there's no excuses. He's from the suburbs of Montreal. So what? You kind of can figure, no matter where you're from, that's not really a cool thing to do. That's just kind of crossing the line. He's not from the suburbs in Paris or suburbs in Brooklyn or South Bronx. Suburbs of Brooklyn or South Bronx, right? He doesn't need to be from there to know that that's crossing the line. But my point was, he also knows that doing that in those other places that I mentioned, doing that in those places, that there's definite consequences. He felt that there was going to be no consequences, which means that he knows that consequence exists. So he did it in a place where there would be none, or he felt there would be none, which makes it a pretty cowardice act.
Yeah, I see what you mean when you explain those terms. Can you say a few words about like the responsibility of street dancers as far as like representing the culture and how much can weigh on the way they show up depending on their
I don't want to put like the responsibility of the world.
Yeah, not to worry about, but
dancers.
Something to consider,
But yeah, like we just in general, because where street dance is from and the people that it's from, I think we have to be very aware of our branding. Going back to that, we have to be very aware of our branding and not live up to our branding. We have to totally fight against the way we've been marketed to the world and not play into it. We don't have to kowtow to the bullshit, but we also don't want to play into the bullshit. And doing stuff like that and then saying, like, if you don't like it, stay out of the battle. That's the way, like saying stupidness like that. It's playing into the bullshit, especially when you're not from that world. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Well said. I don't know what Greenteck is up to nowadays, so maybe he's changed from this. Hopefully.
I hope, man. I hope Greenteck, if you're out there, I hope you're doing well. I hope you've grown from this time. It was already a few years ago. But yeah, brother, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're doing better than you were at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you that he's very talented in his dance. So it was a surprising to me to see him do this, just because, again, I don't know him. But for someone to be disciplined means you have control over your choices, right? So to do something like this is like going the opposite way.
Yeah. And it's funny because until this point, literally every single time that I saw Greenteck, I would be like, you are incredible. Like, I was a fan, son. He's dope. And then he did this, and I was just like, it just knocked me out of the fandom. I was out of the fandom.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, thank you for the commentary.
No doubt, man.
I know you were living in Japan for 17 years. What was your experience like in Japan? Because I think you have a unique perspective, given that you actually lived there for like over a decade, right?
Yeah. Almost 2.
Yeah.
Wow. Saying it like that is just like, it's funny. There's a generation of people that don't know me from New York. Like they know me as, oh, Terry lives. There's an entire generation of people that associate me almost purely with Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if you're 17 when you were born until now, I wasn't there. So,
but I mean, like, did you say, "Oh yeah, do you know Brooklyn Terry from Japan?"
Yeah.
Okay.
that and some comedians like my friend Jeff Freedom used to call me Tokyo Terry. Shut up, Jeff.
You know, that's actually pretty catchy, dude. Like,
I know,
because there's a drink called Tokyo Tea. No, but now it's Tokyo Terry.
No, thank you. Let's keep it at Brooklyn Terry. And I got the name Brooklyn Terry. Actually, Stretch gave me the name, and he gave me the name because he knew like that my family situation, that everybody was from Brooklyn, and usually people from Brooklyn from the north have family in the south, and I really had no family in the south to visit during the summer vacations. So I would just go from either Crown Heights to Bed-Stuy or from Flatbush to Bed-Stuy. That was my summer vacations. I had no place to go but Brooklyn. So he dubbed me Brooklyn Terry.
Oh, very cool.
Just wanted to give that.
Yeah. So what was your experience like in Japan, given that Japan's been such a huge force in the work side of dance?
Japan. I have a love-hate relationship with Japan. It's like the Wizard of Oz, and you peek behind the curtain and you see who the wizard really is, and you're like, yikes. Japan, they have industrialized our art really well, but I can't really expect anything different. But the soul of it has been left out. It is just purely industry now. They are great at industry. They're great at study. Great at mimicry. But when it comes to the core, and the whole social part, there's a lot missing. There's a whole lot missing. So everything is very, very practiced. And I think the biggest mistake that they make is thinking that now that they can do it, that they own it. And I see that as the biggest mistake that they make. And I'm trying to say this as nicely as possible. I know you know that.
Yeah. So is the history of the dance known in Japan?
Absolutely.
So by knowing Japan, I mean like the history of where it comes from, who was there. Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just not taught at all because a few people want ownership. I think just in the basic travels, we've been going to Japan the longest and the most frequently. In the beginning, we were, and that's all because of economic situations, right? Especially earlier on, Japan's economy was super strong. They were in the bubble, and then when the bubble finally popped, they still thought they were in the bubble, so they were spending money like they were still in the bubble. So they were flying us out and doing all these huge shows, constantly learning from us. And, for us, it's like, okay, cool. This is our job. We get to feed ourselves and our children. Let's go out there and do what we have to do, teach these folks, come back home. But as the industry grew, you start to notice the cracks. You're looking behind the curtain suddenly, starting to notice the cracks, and you're like, oh, we're about to get closed out. And that's literally what happened.
That must be very painful, to say the least, of seeing something that you had a hand in introducing and shaping up, and then slowly be left out of the conversation.
Yeah. It's pretty annoying. And it's annoying because it's not like it's being done by people who don't know you and people that you've shown kindness to and protected and shared a table with. It's not like it's done by perfectly strangers. It's done by people that were your friends. So it's particularly messed up. And then you notice this time, like there are house dancers who don't know who Ejo and Khalif are. And that is insulting to me. There's hip hop dancers who don't know who Stretch, Link, and Loose Joint are. That's pretty insulting. That means that teachers aren't doing their job. And those same teachers were taught by the people I just mentioned. So, yeah, it's kind of messed up.
So you mentioned earlier about the soul part being left out of some dancers, right? That's an interesting topic in itself, because I've been thinking more recently about soul, especially with the whether it's dance in general or whether it's AI, right? So what are your views on like what the soul actually is?
But the soul is the thing that comes from a natural space, a pure space, the purest of pure spaces. For me, even though people perform, you can see the soul. Like let's say, if I'm on stage or if someone's on stage performing, it doesn't have to be performative while they're performing. It can still come from the purest place. And if you find someone performing and it's coming from the purest place, it touches you, like you feel that because of human empathy. And I find that everything there, whether on the stage or on the dance floor, is very performative. They don't know how to reach that purest place because they don't take the time. They don't take the time to, in the dance world, to dance purely for the joy of the music and the dance. That time is never taken. And if that's never taken, then how do you find that soulful spot, that spot that's just pure? So that's how I define what the soul is. It's just the purest. It's coming, your art coming from the purest of places inside you.
Do you think that falls on how the teachers are passing or raising their students?
Absolutely.
Or in addition, or maybe culturally how Japan is, that because I know for, I guess, quote unquote, regular jobs, it's very competitive, right? And people are just working like crazy hours. So there's a clear goal to make something versus just being.
Yeah.
Do you think that is?
I don't think it's this or that. I think it's this and that. So it's definitely a cultural thing. Also, it's a part because the way the teachers teach their students. And it's interesting because in the beginning, this African-American street dance culture had hit Japan because these young people at that time didn't want to be their parents. They didn't want to be like the salarymen that they saw every day, getting on the train at 6:30 in the morning, super tired and coming home like 10:30 at night. They didn't want to be that person. They didn't want to be a part of that machine. But through the way they teach and through Japanese culture, they actually built the exact same machine inside the street dance world. So they became inside the world, the very thing they didn't want to be. And I think it's because of one culture to the way they share this thing. Senpai Kohai, this, I don't know if you know what Senpai Kohai, so it's like a senior, junior, and you have to respect your senior, which is normal, right? But the junior can never say anything at all to their senior, can never contest, can never challenge their senior. And that kind of thinking is almost the antithesis of what we are in this house in hip hop thing. If hip hop wouldn't exist if it wasn't the juniors challenging the seniors, right? If it wasn't pushing back against the structure, because the seniors are the structure, you know what I mean? The seniors are the ones in charge.
Yeah, the words that come to mind for hip hop and the music and the dance is resistance music.
Yeah, it's rebel music, rebel culture, right? So when you can't push back, it changes the entire culture. So let's say I would never do this ever, but let's say I wanted to call Stretch out, or I wanted to call Ejo out. I would get smoked, right? I would get destroyed, but I could. And they wouldn't hate me for it. I wouldn't be like exiled for doing that. But there, that doesn't exist. You're not allowed to. And I could do it. And that would be like, if I did it with them, that would be steel sharpening steel. Me and Ejo used to battle every Wednesday. He would smoke me every Wednesday for what felt like 2 years. But if he didn't do that, Terry wouldn't exist, right? Skill-wise. While they're not allowed to do that, it kind of makes them plateau. It makes the seniors plateau, and it makes the juniors plateau. I could push Ejo harder to get better. I hope I did. And Ejo would push me to get better. I know he did. But in that situation, they're not allowed to push against the system because culturally, they don't push against the system. It's just, there's a lot of things that don't match, and the teachers who came first, who saw what it was, I think they were more interested in the power that it brought them than in actually sharing what the culture was and sharing the freedom of the culture.
You obviously have a lot of students in Japan, and I would assume that you teach your students this openness as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are their thoughts? Did they struggle, or not struggle, but feel conflicted because it's so different from culturally how it is over there? Yeah,
they do. Oh man, I have a lot of people that were taking my classes, that would come to take my classes, and I've had at least 3 or 4 of them just stop going to the battle events, the Japanese battle events in Japan, because they told me, now I really love the dance, so that stuff doesn't matter to me anymore, and that makes me happy. I'm very happy that I could do that. One of them, who was really young, like he was not young, he was already club age when he first came to my classes. When he first had come to the classes, he'd said to me, I don't know what good music is. And I was brokenhearted. He's like, I don't know what good music is. So to me, that meant that he was just using the music as a metronome to dance to. So he could have just danced to tick, 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 and that was it. Like, that would have been fine.
Yeah, pretty much just tempo matching.
Yeah. That's all he was. It was just a tool to match the tempo. I was like, are you kidding me? And then we started to hang out, and I started to introduce him to music, and he fell in love with music, and his dance improved. But he also left that battle scene because he was just like, yeah, I love this now. And that is not what I do. And I said that they left the battle scene because that is almost the only scene that exists in Japan. There's no party scene. It is battles and showcases with what they call DJ time. And the DJ time, if it's long, it's 45 minutes. That's a Fela song and like 2 house tracks, right? So yeah, I think the teachers have stopped teaching. And it's already I honestly feel like it's already too late because we're already generations deep in this. So it would be a lot of turning back the clock in order to repair this situation. Yeah, I think they've definitely strayed off the path. You know what I mean? Sorry, guys. It is what it is.
Yeah, I have actually never been to Japan, but I've always kind of felt those vibes from Japan without having been there. Yeah, the tempo matching thing also makes sense to me because I think of all the ways to practice or train. It's probably the most accessible manner because it's just timing, or not even timing, but like certain patterns over, so you can really apply to any song without dancing to the actual song.
Exactly, without having any emotional connection to the tune you're dancing to, you can do a trick over anything.
Yeah. How do you teach your students to be original?
How do I teach my students to be original? First of all, when I'm in my studio in Japan, I see them every week, twice a week. So it gives me lots of time. Because
I see some teachers, students look exactly like them. Not exactly, but to a very high, like you can associate easily, right?
Yeah.
While others is like, yeah, this is the person my teacher, and you see the essence, but you still see that person.
So I have this rule to always leave space for the magic, right? And that means like, don't get over technical. So if I'm teaching someone a step like loose legs, I don't say it has to be like this and exactly like this. I get them to the pattern of loose legs. Then I just let them do them inside that pattern. Because that's, especially with that particular step, that step is like a fingerprint. We all have them. At least, 99% of there's some people without, some freaky folks without fingerprints. That must be a great life. Nobody knows who you are. Right? We all have them, but they're all different. They're all different. And that's what loose legs is. We all have it. That's what the entire dance is, to be honest. And you just have to leave space for people to find out who they are within the dance. And a lot of folks overteach and say, this has to be like this and it can't be any different, which you just said it earlier. This is rebel culture. What's up with it can't be any different? That doesn't match what this is. So we have to leave space for the miracles. We have to leave space for people to find out who they are within this dance.
With the leaving space, what's the line being drawn from being able to teach true to the foundations versus your own element into it?
That's people ask me that question a lot, and I actually find that question pretty funny, considering poetry and rap music exist. And poetry and rap music exist in the very same exact language. And then you listen to different poets and they're using the exact same language to say things very different ways. You listen to rappers who are speaking the exact same language, but they're saying it and doing it very differently. Jay-Z and Andre 3000 are both rappers speaking the exact same language. They sound nothing alike, but you also know that they're rapping. The same thing with house. We are speaking the exact same language, but you look and we're very different. But you also can understand that we're doing house. And that's what it is. Jay-Z found himself in his story from where he's from. Andre found himself in his story from where he's from. And if you give people space to do that, they will do that. You just got to give folks space to do it.
What are your thoughts on the feeling versus technique, especially in a circle or cipher?
Feeling is where the technique is born. Period.
What about rawness?
Rawness? I mean, rawness is the feeling, right? Rawness is like the primordial ooze. That's the feeling, right? But if you're in a battle, if you've signed the paper, you should do the dance. Like, I can't come into a house battle and lock for 3 rounds straight. That's not what you signed up for. I can't come into a locking battle and just do like freestyle hip hop. So there's a rawness, there's a feeling that might hit, but if once you sign that paper in the battle, which is why those battles can be a little bit difficult, you have to follow that rule. But in a club, in a circle, first of all, you shouldn't be doing any particular dance. You should be just going out there and dancing. And no one can tell you what to do because that's your time. You do what you do. Period. Full stop.
How do you stay inspired, man? Like, after all these years, it's because I recognize that at times when I don't feel inspired, and to me that's a scary place because I like being consuming by something or consuming it myself, right? I like kind of that, like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this thing.
Yeah. Wow. I really can't tell you. I think right now the way I stay inspired is just through music, period. Constantly listening to really good music and digging for really good music. Because the music has always been the thing that inspired me to dance. Like, first and foremost, I would watch people dance and be like, wow, that's amazing. I wish I was as good. But it was always the music that moved me to make me dance. So I think that's where I find my inspiration dance-wise nowadays. And quick, like, kind of side note, like, a lot of people ask me, they'll say that they go through these periods of feeling like they're really good, and then they go through a period of feeling like they suck at what they do, or a period of just being bored with what they do. And like, those waves are perfectly normal. You go through this kind of discovery period and it's exciting and you feel like you're getting better and like you really feel it in your body. And then you hit this point where you have it, that thing, that discovery, you got it. And you are no longer feeling that excitement, that adrenaline. And you feel like, oh, I suck, or, oh, I'm bored. But the thing is, that's just a whole part of it. And then you keep going and the next wave comes back because you've found something new. You found a new goal to reach and you feel excited. So that is just a part of the loop. So the way to get by that is to not stop when you get bored. When I feel uninspired, I just keep going until I feel inspired again. That's it.
I see. So pretty much you're just focusing on staying in the movement.
Keep moving. It's a constant loop.
So considering that your peers are people like Joe, Stretch, and Link, what was it like dancing with them in that time period?
Hard. Hard. Elite Force, we are silently competitive, which is, I think, it's beautiful because we keep each other really sharp. I mean, come on, man. The most difficult thing for me to do is to get on the stage after Stretch, Link, Joe, Loose Joint, and Bobby. It's just like, I gotta go now. The last spot is the most difficult spot to go. Like, we gotta do our solos or something like that. It's always hard. But it's also always inspiring. And how I handle it is I remind myself, if I didn't deserve to be here, I wouldn't be here, right? And I go and I do what I do. I go and I do what I do. Because as amazing as all of them are, I am the best Brooklyn Terry there is. There's no other Brooklyn Terry better than this one. Prove it, right? And you keep that frame of mind and you realize that your individuality is what makes you amazing. just like theirs is what makes them amazing. And you can go on with them. Because if Link was a Brooklyn Terry, he'd probably smoke me.
You mentioned that you're the best version of Brooklyn Terry, but I'm guessing there's probably other Brooklyn Terrys out there as far as like imitations of you. When Ijo was on here, we were talking about how there was a Japanese Ijo, right? That I don't know who it is, so I'm not going to name that person. But what does it feel like? What does it feel like seeing someone be your clone? Like, what is it?
It's weird. It's weird, and it's weird because I'm being me, but not trying to be me. So I'll do shit that I do and don't recognize that I do it. And then you see someone who recognizes everything you do. It mimics everything you do. And you're just like, that is really scary. And you have a lot of time on your hands. Like, it's really weird. And you feel like, hey, cut it out. Stop it. You know what I mean? Cut it out. Are you walking like me? That happens. So yeah, it's just weird, bro. It's just weird. I mean, I can't even put vocabulary to that. There's no words. Is it? So it's not the same as seeing a doppelganger. It's like, yeah, because that person won't look like you, but that person will look like, in a silhouette, that person will be the bargain version of you. It's like the Jordans with the fake Jordan, like from far away. You're like, that dude got on Jordans, and you get closer, you look at the details, and it's like a dude pushing a sharpened car. That's the logo.
Oh man, that's funny. Tell me about some really memorable events or memories from at any point in your dance journey, whether it's like, hey, this was a legendary battle, or I can't believe this whole sequence of events happened.
Oh man, this is a good one. I was really young. Sound Factory Bar, this had to be 94-ish. Either late 94, early 95. Storm. B-Boy Storm and Flowmaster came to New York. They came to Sound Factory Bar. Me, Ijo, and Brian, and I'm like the little one with them. Me, Ijo, and Brian were there, and like Storm and Flo were dancing, and it was territorial. Then it's like, this is my space. This is the club that I come to every week. So in order to be in those circles, you had to go through the ranks. It wasn't easy. It wasn't very kumbaya. It's like something you had to work. It was a goal. Like, we had the baby circle for the younger ones, which I participated in for a long time. And you graduate up to the big boys and big girls circle.
So you're talking about like a rite of passage kind of thing.
Yeah, very much a rite of passage. So, of course, they had their names. They were big boys, and they came into the club, and we were just like, yeah, no, you don't have rite of passage in this space. And that battle took about 3 hours, nonstop, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I cannot tell you who won, but I know it was epic. And now I love Storm. I love Flo. I have so much respect for them. But yeah, that was one of the most memorable times in my life, especially because I was young. And I was just like, oh my God. Me, Joe, and Brian, we went out we got Storm and Flo for hours. And like that stayed, and everybody, all the young dancers was like, yo, that was incredible. It was one of the best moments.
Yeah, it sounds like I can't even comprehend how a battle can last for 3 hours.
Yeah, that was called Young Knees. That was my dance name back then, Young Kneesy.
Is that pretty standard for how long battles can last?
No.
Nowadays it's used to, like as far as contests, I'm used to seeing rounds, right?
Bruh. Seriously. Okay, so if you go to a battle today, which is nothing but a dance contest. If you go to a battle today, right? Let's say you join in the prelims. Right? So from the prelims, let's say you win the final. You get all the way to the end and you win the final. You've danced about 20 minutes the entire night. 20 minutes. And this is not exaggeration. This is like not the old dude talking shit. We would go out 6, sometimes 7 nights a week. And within those 6 or 7 nights a week, we would, like, dance time would be like 3-4 hours each night that we went out. I'm not good at math, but I think that's more than 20 minutes. Right? So yeah, it was, and that was like our practice. We danced way more back then than people do now, even when they go to jams or sessions or whatever that is. So a battle itself would never last that long. Maybe a battle might be 20 or 30 minutes. But our dance time through the night, because we did way more than just battle, we danced way more than just in the battle. Our dance time every night would be 4 hours plus, you know what I mean? Depending on, if I was in the shelter, we go all night. So yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Speaking of battles, what's your judging criteria? Do you have a certain rule book, or like, yeah, what do you go by when judging these events?
What do I go by when judging? First of all, everyone should have an actual judge criteria, not just, oh, that guy was good. Like, that's not criteria.
Yeah.
Of course, I think of technique, that we're in a battle. It's a contest. You have to look at technique. You have to see if they are competent at whatever movement they're doing. Like, that's a definite. You have to be competent at the movement. I have to understand, like, if you're doing the farmer, I have to understand that you're fucking doing the farmer. Like, I have to see that. Music, you gotta be on beat. You don't have to be ultra musical, but you should be on the basic 4/4 or 2/4. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, back to the whole, at least match the tempo thing.
Match the tempo. And you would be amazed how many people just don't even realize that they don't. And I think that's one of all of our biggest pet peeves. It's like, it's 2024. You have GPS. Go find the beat.
Siri, where's the beat?
Yeah. For real. Alexa.
Okay, I found this on the web for where. By the way, if you have another request, you don't need to say Siri before you ask it.
That's hilarious. That was hilarious. Yeah, you see how easy it is? Oh my God. So yeah, that's one. Movement quality. Movement quality. All right, so if you make music, right? And you're mastering your music, for example, or you're just mixing. If all the sounds are too loud, it's blurry and muddy. Yeah? So I forgot the word, but the difference between loud and soft.
Dynamics,
right? So movement quality is dynamics. It's the difference between stillness and motion. And just like the difference between loud and soft in music, the difference with that's clarity in the song. The difference between stillness and motion and dance equals clarity. How clear the movement is. It can't be muddy. It cannot be muddy. I have to be able to see it. Right? And I don't think that falls under technique. Like music quality, dance quality is a thing all by itself for me. A good example for me with movement quality would be Shannon. Everything is super sharp. It could be the smallest move, but it's super sharp. You saw what he did. Like, just... And the last would be actual musicality. Musicality is one of those words that everyone is using nowadays, and most people don't know what musicality is. They just think that it is listening, anticipating, and repeating what you just heard, but that's not musicality. That is just what I said, listening, anticipating to know that it's coming back, and then hitting the accents that you just heard a few minutes ago. That is not musicality. Because what happens in between that, right? You're just waiting for those particular sounds. What happens in between that? Musicality is dancing like the music sounds. Dancing like the music sounds. All sound has shape. All sound has shape. If you think of a bass note, it's rounded, it's soft. If you think the pop of a snare, it's kind of pointy, right? All sound has a shape. You have to move like the music sounds, because I want to see the music. And yeah, those are my main criteria.
Yeah, can you expand further on musicality and the components of musicality, whether it's the accenting or the tonal qualities? What are the components?
Musicality is not, accenting is in there, but accents, an entire song is not made of accents, right? But throughout the entire song, you do have tonal qualities. Yeah? So the texture of the music, the tone of the sound, not even just the music itself, each sound in the music, the texture and the tone of each sound in the music, you have to be able to be in touch with that. And you have to be able to mimic that, almost to visualize what each sound feels like or looks like. And a lot of people make this mistake, like, oh, his musicality is great because he or she keeps hitting those accents. But what about the rest of the song? What about the entire song? And being the ability to catch the accents is a great ability, and it looks really dope. But it doesn't look really dope if you're not doing much else until that part of the song. You have to be able to be the visual representation of the song you're dancing to. And that takes something very difficult that I find that most people don't do. Listen. Just fucking listen.
Yeah, so walk me through from beginner level to advanced or mastery level as far as musicality. What is that? What are those in between steps?
At the beginning level, like let's say house would be the ability to just catch the 4/4. Dunce, 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 dunce. And then still at beginning level, catch the 4/4 with that hi-hat in there. Dunce, 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 dunce. And not just go boom, bouncing. Represent what they are. Right? Everybody's a DJ now, right? So if you look at the waveform of a kick, it's flat in the front and it comes down to a point at the back, right? So that means the attack is great and then the decay is softer, and your movement should represent that, right? That's in the beginning. And then mastery is just this constant weaving flow of every rhythm, how every sound, like representing every sound, and they have to just weave through without ever crashing. And you have to sometimes even become a member of the band and create a rhythm yourself. That is the mastery. That's when you become the master. And when you create a rhythm, you can't create a rhythm off beat, people. You can't create the rhythm off the beat of the particular song that you're dancing to. Thank you very much. So here's one I'll throw in there. What's the difference between the beat, and the rhythm, right? Beat usually stands for the tempo, BPM, beats per minute, right? So usually in the song, there's one, in this case, we're talking about house and hip hop. There's one constant beat, one constant BPM. You can double that BPM, but it's still the same BPM. Like, let's say if it's 60, you can double that to 120, but it's still exactly the same BPM. You know what I mean? Rhythms. Rhythms are patterns that are played to that BPM. So in the song, you have one beat, but you'll have several rhythms. You have the rhythm of the drummer. And even inside the drum, you have a few. You'll have kick, snare, hi-hat, right? Then you have the rhythm of percussion. And in that percussion rhythm, there'll be a lot of stuff going on. And then you have the rhythm of the human voice, which is called the cadence. Or you have the rhythm of the, let's say, horns, which is also called the cadence. And then you have the melodies on the piano, because melodies also contain rhythm. And you have to be able to weave through that as a master the entire time, because you are the visual of what the music is.
Yeah, well said. How did you develop your musicality?
I don't know. I just dance to the music. I don't think about that stuff. I love the music and I dance to it.
So was it just naturally listen to music and dancing, or did you also pick up an instrument and start playing it?
No, I don't play any instrument. I DJ, and I simply DJ because I love music. And I think musicality comes from maturity. The more you mature in the dance, the more musical you become, because I think with maturity, you become more in touch with the music itself. It takes time, like anything good. It just takes time, and a lot of people aren't willing to put the time in, and they want to get there. Like, they want to get there now. Amazon Prime, like they want it right now. But yeah, that stuff, it takes time, and it's not something that is practiced per se, because I see people practicing what they think is musicality, and they're just, beat killing. And I always say, why you want to kill a beat? Music is life, right? But that's not musicality. That's waiting for the accent and then doing something to the accent.
Yeah, the times that I've noticed that I've been more musically in tune is when I get out of what I call anticipation mode versus just being mode.
Yeah, it's like, stop trying to control the river and just float on, you know?
What are your thoughts about originality within a battle? Like, let's say if someone's clone enters a battle and then they make it really far, but they're against someone else who's not as good, but that person is more themselves. Like, how do you?
That's a tough one. That's a really, really tough one. Because at the end of the day, these battles, yes, they're about each person being like, at the end of the day, it's about who dances better in these battle events, right? Who dances better. And if this person is not dancing like anyone, but it's like muddy and offbeat, and, you know, I can't vote him over the person that dances like Khalif and really well. I can't do that. It's like that guy wins. So if you're original and really dope, then you get it. But you just can't be original.
Can you explain more about what you mean by being in the pocket?
Being in the pocket is when you let go and you let it happen. Nothing is forced. And I have this explanation of what the groove is, and you're just in the groove. The groove is the pocket, where you have your techniques, you have your things to do, but at the end of the day, the music is just leading you. And you can see that because nothing looks forced. When you're in the pocket, you're in the groove, nothing is forced, and it looks seamless to the music and very natural. Who are some of my dance heroes? My contemporaries, it's like contemporary heroes of my crew. I am a part of the best dance family in the world. Elite Force, Dance Fusion. I'm sorry, the best. I'm not even gonna hold you. It's just the best. Super versatile. super talented, very deep. Yeah. And that's how I feel. So they are very much my heroes. And, you know, they're my contemporaries, but they're my heroes. But going back, it's like the Nicholas brothers. Who else? Oh my God, Jimmy Slide. Bill Bailey. Yeah. Those are some of my heroes. Gregory Hines.
Yeah. To our listeners out there, we just had a segment on dance commentaries. It's probably going to be cut out into its own playlist. So if you don't see this episode, check out the playlist. I have a few more questions for you, and then we'll close out.
Yep.
So you have children,
Yep.
some of which are your daughters, right? So what advice would you give women out there on how to navigate the dance world? Because it can be both very positive, but also it's male dominated.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So
yeah. Well, just first of all, you guys are definitely the reason that most of us men dance in the first place. It can be a direct reason, like with me and a lot of like Stretch, Wiggles, all of us. Our sisters were the first ones to introduce us to the dance. Like that's the direct reason. Or it could also be like a lot of us men, when we noticed you watching, we really were like, oh, I want to dance more. So I think you need to carry that with you the entire time and know that you're the reason that we do what we do. And take your spot. Don't ask for your spot. Take your spot. And to all the fans of the dance, and to the organizers, and to the people taking classes, remember that us guys that are doing it, the men that are doing it, we're not telling you that we're your heroes. What I mean is, you pick your own heroes. You guys, organizers, people taking classes, also need to do better at bringing women out. We can hold them and push them to the forefront as much as possible. But if on the other side, no one is doing the work to bring the women out, to teach, to bring the reason out, to teach, it's never going to work. So I want to tell all the women that walk through this thing knowing that you are the reason, and command your spot. Don't ask for your spot. Command your spot because it's yours. And for the people on the other side, remember we, the guys, are not the ones to tell you who your heroes are. Do better. You can't look at us and say, well, we're the women. I can look at you and say, why don't you bring the women out? That's what I would say.
Beautifully said. How can people best support you or support the culture?
How can people best support me? Support me by, well, one, come to my cafe. I am building a cafe in Brooklyn right now. The Rep Music Cafe, 450 Nostrand Avenue. And you coming in and buying a coffee in the daytime and coming to hang out and party with us at night helps a lot. A whole lot. A whole lot. This cafe, it will be an art space in the hood, and we have a very, very deep focus on wellness and mental health, because my partner, who is definitely the backbone, her name is Toya Liverpool. She is a psychotherapist, licensed, master's degree, beast, and she definitely brings the whole wellness part to what we're doing. We're going to have a basement that's finished, and we're going to make kind of a dance studio / yoga wellness space in that space. So by supporting that, you know, capitalism doesn't save our lives at all, but by supporting that, you help to keep or create a community space that can help people thrive, or just help people find some kind of sanity, or help people present their work, present their art. So Yeah, that is one way you can support me, by helping me support the community. And how can you support the culture? How can you help the culture? I think the support to the culture, it's not from giving money or donating or anything like that. I don't think that is the key. I think your hunger to know why instead of just what is what really supports the culture. Your hunger to know where things are from and why things happen. I feel like it'll give you a lot more respect for the people, because behind every single culture, there's a people. If you want to understand the dance, you have to understand the music. If you want to understand the music, you have to understand the people. That's how that works. Coming in, finding out the why. And once you find out the why and you're beginning to get a grasp, share it. Share it with whoever you go back home to teach. Share the whys. And another way to help the culture is never let the pioneers disappear. Never let the people who help to bring this thing to you that gives you freedom, never let them disappear. Never erase them. Because erasure is probably the most painful thing that you can do, because it just kind of takes us off the board at the end of the day. So do your due diligence and do the work to make sure that none of the pioneers disappear.
Yeah, if all the places you could have chosen up to open the coffee shop, why was it Flatbush?
No, Bed-Stuy.
Bed-Stuy, okay.
So Flatbush was the first choice.
Okay.
That's where I currently live, and that's where I spent my teenage years, teenage to adult. It was my first choice, but this property was super limited, you know. Bed-Stuy was my second choice. That's where I spent my childhood years, literally 2 blocks from where I'm opening a cafe. I went to elementary school, and right down the street from that is where my grandmother lived. And I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house because my mom put me in that elementary school because my grandmother lived right down the street. So I picked this area because it's home, and it's not home in the sense of like sticking a pin on a map home. Feeling wise, it's home. Brooklyn is home. And I also felt like because of gentrification, there's a lot of businesses coming into those spaces that don't really give a damn about the people who help to make those places as cool as they are, who built the cultures of those places. So I wanted to build my space there. And also because Flatbush, Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy are really, really, they've donated so much to music, the art, and the dance of New York City that it's just not to be ignored. So I wanted to have a space there where, because it's a hub, and I needed to be in the hub, and I wanted to do something to provide and give back as well.
Any shout-outs you'd like to mention?
Shout out to my crew, Elite Force. I love y'all. Shout out to Dance Fusion 100. Shout out to all of Mob Top family and Mob Top Core. Shout out to Misfits. Yeah, Dunny. Yeah. Who else? Shout out to my man Moncel and my boy Cricket down in LA, but from Philly, doing a thing. That's the family. And of course, Mommy, I love you. Shout out to my lovely little children, Miyabi, Mao, and Zion.
Thank you so much. Any final closing thoughts for our listeners out there, whether it's someone of your generation, a new dancer, or an artist? Yeah.
Wow, new dancers. Yeah, it's a quick. It's not necessarily a message, but it's just something to think about. I just want to say, like, there's a lot of people saying that New York, there's not a lot of stuff coming out of New York anymore. And I just want to say that is absolutely untrue. It's just that you're not looking. New York is still not just New York, but the States, we're still providing a huge, if not all, I'll say a huge swath of the dance that is entering the world today. And I just got really tired of hearing that the States is not representing anymore. We may not be representing in the things that you want to see that you already know, like hip hop, house, b-boying, popping and locking. And I also think that that's not true. It's lots of talent. But we also represent in the things that you will be doing in the next 20 years. You just haven't caught up yet. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, hip hop, house, and the other dance styles and musical styles are one of America's biggest and best exports,
Yeah, exactly. So, and we don't know that, well, we know because we're in the trenches. We know the next biggest exports, but you just don't know yet. You haven't figured it out yet, but we already see it. We already know that Detroit Jit and Jukin and Light Feet are coming at you hard. And in the next decade or so, you'll be saying that there's no good dancers from the States anymore because the next thing will be on its way again.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate having you here. It's been very educational, and it just feels amazing to talk to one of my dance heroes in person.
Oh, shut up. Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having me. Hey, just so y'all know, this is a long interview. We must like each other. We've been here talking for a long time.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come back on the show anytime soon.
All right,
Thank
cool.
you so much, man.
Thank you, man.